I did my engineering from Bangalore. So I spent 4 years there, but then I couldn't find job for a year. Then I got my first offer. It's barely around 6.5 thousand per month. Then I moved to one company where I got around like 15,000. And then I switched again, maybe like 40-50% of increment. And then one of the US based startup, I got an email from a CEO saying that I saw your to-do app on a GitHub and it looks interesting to me. I think this might be a fake email or spam email. Can I throw a random number at him so that he couldn't say yes to it? And then he said, okay, yes. It was like around 100-300% kind of a hike. I usually recommend top three books, which basically change my perspective. If you can't read more books, just learn these three. If they ask for your CTC, they are trying to lowball you. Basically, you don't have to say your CTC. Since I came from a village, it was under an illusion that if I'm in a top three in my village, then I will be a top three in India as well. I went to the college and then it like my dream basically shattered. It's a funny story. Like my first open source project was not meant to be a project. Photo editor, which is basically an image editing library, and it has around 4K stars. That basically got so popular that I got a chance to talk at TroidCon Berlin about that whole journey, 4 year journey of the photo editor, how I started and what did I learn. Writing is one of the hardest things people don't like to do. So that is something you can do to stand out yourself. So answering the questions on Stack Overflow, it's also increased the visibility. Plus, it helped me to understand how to write better. Because when I wrote my first blog, what the biggest mistake I did was one of the things I like about Copilot is it's kind of a TDD on steroids, right? You write two test cases and then it will automatically write the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth one with different parameters. I would say that people who look for a gap in a resume have a gap in their thinking. If you have a really good portfolio, like it doesn't matter. I've been trying to share a lot of these things on and off, but now today I got a chance to share everything at one place.
Welcome to Beyond the Brackets. I'm Pariti.
And I'm Mitesh. Today we have Burhan with us. Burhan is a mobile development consultant and a Google expert. He has led a very inspiring career, which started from not having a job for 1 year after college to now having worked with multiple clients remotely based outside of India. Your journey that you have led so far is going to be very inspiring for the listeners. So I'm really excited to have you on the show, Burhan.
Thank you, Nitesh. Thank you.
So, Burhan, let's start by talking about your journey so far, like an overview.
So I did my engineering from Bangalore. So I spent 4 years there. But then my first shock was there that I couldn't find job for a year. So I was jobless at that time. And one of my friend who was working in Ahmedabad, he recommended me to watch some YouTube video and start working on it. So then I got my first offer, and that offer was it's barely around 6.5 thousand per month at that time. When you heard on Twitter story, right, that I gave gift to my parents on my first salary, I give this and that. But mine was I have to ask my parent for extra 3,000 to survive for the first few months. So that's how it started. And then when I went into my first job and I thought why it took me around a year to find a job. And then I realized that I want to reverse it. Like instead of me finding a job, a company should be finding me. And that's when into building kind of your own brand or like on identity on the internet. And that like started very slow. So then I worked there for 2 years. Then I moved to one company where I got around like 15,000. It's like 100% increment, but it was like 15,000 per month. And then I switched again. I realized that if I want to make my compensation more, I need to move to a bigger city. And that's where I moved to Pune. And it was a good package around it, maybe like 40-50% of increment at that time. And then I moved to another company, which same, like in India, usually it's like 30-40% hike if you go in that route. And then one of the US based startup, which is basically called Rock, I got an email from a CEO saying that I saw your to-do app on a GitHub and it looks interesting to me. So would you like to join my company? And I thought, okay, someone reaching out of a nowhere and asking for a job. I think this might be a fake email or spam email. So I ignored it for like 2-3 weeks. I didn't respond. And then he responded back to me again that is there an update on it? And then okay, I thought let's give it a try. I just gave a random number at that time because I thought like he's reaching out to me from nowhere and it's not going to work out that well. Can I throw a random number at him so that he couldn't say yes to it? And then he said, okay, yes, we are agreed to it. I thought I'm not going to get this job anyway. So let's just throw a number and see if like I can if I get a nearby some like half of it, 50%, 70%. So at least I'll get to know what the current number is in the market.
to compare it with
Previous
the
one.
compensation that you were having, like previous one, like what
Yeah.
was, how much higher was it?
It was like around 100, 200, I think 200, 300% kind of hike. Then I worked there for around 2 years. And then unfortunately, we started to have layoffs. And I also got layoff for there. I didn't have work for around a few months. And then I thought of starting my classes at that time because I didn't have much work to do and thought, let's just write it out this anyway. So that started. And then one of the company CTO reached out to me saying that since you are teaching these classes, I want to learn Flutter. So can I learn it? So I said, like, what is your experience? So he said, I'm a backend engineer with 20 years of experience. So I said, this might not help you because you are a backend engineer. So that's conversation lead to another and another and another. And then he offered me a job there. And that's how I found another company which is basically a UK based startup.
This is amazing. You said that you don't want to be in this frustrating position where you are searching for jobs and trying here and there, and you ultimately got there. So both of these two really high paying jobs, they came to you instead of you going to them.
Yeah.
So that is amazing, and that's what this interview is going to be all about. That the journey and how other people can also get there.
Funny thing was when I was in a college, I was under an impression that like since I came from a village and I was like coming always in a top three ranking at that time. So it was under an illusion that okay, if I'm in a top three in my village, then I will be a top three in India as well. Because like India have very few people, right? So I went into the college and then it like my dream basically shattered that, oh, like I am the 60th, 70th position in my class where I'm like getting 70, 75% from 11th and then like in the board exam. And that's where I realized that there is a lot of competition in India. I was under impression that when I will go into a 4 years of placement, Google will come to that college and ask me, hey, where is Burhan Rashid? I want him to hire, like without asking anything.
So the 1 year gap that you had, what were primarily the things that you were learning? What was your tech stack mainly at that point?
So I didn't learn anything for 6 months. So I like initially I tried to go abroad, basically a Gulf country, which is basically Kuwait and Dubai and UAE type of thing, because people say that like you will earn in dinar. So and dinar is a very high currency. Unfortunately or fortunately, I didn't get a job there. I didn't do any much technical thing for 8 to 9 months. And that's where my friend told me that okay, like you had enough, you don't need to do this, just go and watch YouTube videos. So it was around 2015 and 16. So I watch around like Android development videos. I try to mimic, basically copy paste whatever they were doing, and then it was working. The app which I was trying to build from the tutorials was working. So that's basically what I learned.
What have you learned about upskilling and how to do it and why is it important?
When I was in Bangalore, like there were around like 100 engineering college, and in each batch there were like 120 people. So if you multiply 100 by 120, there are a lot of engineers coming out every year, right? So how do you make yourself differentiate from that much amount of engineer coming out? And that's basically upskilling yourself.
But learning by yourself and teaching new technologies all by yourself, it must be very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why it's important to build projects a lot. So when you build a lot of projects, give you the real learning. So I've been like reading like technical books for around 6 to 7 years, and one thing I constantly found is no matter what kind of knowledge you take, until and unless you don't put in a practice, like it doesn't add much value. It's like that you can't get a six packs abs by reading a fitness book, right? You have to go to the gym and then work out and do that stuff. And by default, learning should be hard enough. Like, I mean, by nature, learning is hard. Most developers start learning, and if they face difficulty, some kind of like they're running a program, and if they get an error message, they just give it up in between that, like, I can't do it, or try to learn a different programming language and try another technology. And same thing happen again and again because it is not meant to be easy. If it would meant to be easy, then everyone would have done it, right? So it's like you have to understand that learning new things is by nature very hard. So you just don't give up in between. Just keep doing it, and you will find something there.
Right.
You mentioned reading a lot of technical books, right?
Yeah.
Is there any one or two books in particular that you'd like to recommend?
There are many, but I usually recommend top three books, which basically change my perspective. One is basically Working Effectively with Legacy Code with Michael C. Feathers, because I was way too afraid of changing any code. So I read that book and give confidence on me. And then there is a Refactoring, Improving Existing Design of the System by Martin R. Fowler. And then there's a third one called TDD, Test Design Development by Kent Beck. So if you can't read more books, just learn these three, and it like Pareto principle, right? 80-20% principle, right? So these are the 20% book which will give you 80% output. So these are my top three recommended book if anyone wants to get it.
Yeah, I love it. And I was also looking at your LinkedIn, and I saw that you read a lot of non-technical books as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
What would be your recommendation for 2 to 3 non-technical book recommendations?
So I think there are two books. So I usually read more of productivity and time management, mostly, and more of entrepreneurship and startup and business building and that stuff. So in terms of productivity and time management, I would recommend two books, which basically all other books are basically derived from all those two books. Is basically How to Win Friends and Influence People. And another one is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So these are the two books. If you read those, like same 20-80% ratio, this 20% like kind of book will give you 80% output of it. So yeah.
Why would you say I should read it?
So sometimes like things happen with you, you like somewhere know like this happening, but you don't know why. And sometimes reading other people's perspective make you understand, oh, why this is happening. So let's say if you have a friend and like he's not talking to you, he or she is not talking to you, or you have a lot of conflicts happening or anything kind of like that, like you want to look for an answer why it's happening and all that stuff. And How to Win and Friends, like that book basically gives the human nature of things. For like basically the most basic nature of a human is that the feeling of importance, right? So if you give a person a feeling of importance, then basically they will be your good friends and help you out. The book also says that you should not use this as a tactic kind of a thing to influence people, but more of a genuinely a person. So if we are talking right now, right? And if I know that concept, then I would be more aware about it and be more into people, like listening to them, that what they want to say or what is their like important stuff for them. So like that's how it helps usually. So that was a book which basically make the mental model shift in terms of how to communicate with people in general.
And what about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? How did that shift your brain?
So I actually read that book very late. So it was always recommended, but I just read the 7 Habit and I thought, oh, this is just like normal stuff. Be proactive and win-win situation and
Yeah.
strategy and all that stuff. I thought like this stuff is very boring. I already knew stuff. I was reading another like books and all that stuff. But then I thought, let's just try read once, and I went into it. And all other books, I realized that whatever 10, 15 books I have written on it is just basically derived from that 7 Habit itself. And
Mm,
and the way the author basically explain all those concepts is really interesting, like with the personal examples also. And also, how would I say, more from as not just from a technical perspective that okay, you have to do this and that and all, but more of a individual level and personality, or if I may call on a spiritual level, like, right, that if whatever you do, the book start with that you have to understand yourself first, that like what is your personality, what you want to do with your life, and then try to build all those things around it. Nowadays, when I talk to any like young, I'm not old, but like young in a kind of a 20s and in 15s, most of them are like, I don't know, I don't know what to do with my life. I'm more of a clueless. I don't know where to go. So I mean, like that is the way the author start on answering those questions, that like what do you really like. Because nowadays, what happened usually is, I'll just reverse it, like I'll digress from the actual topic. We get influenced a lot by social media and all that stuff. Instead of our dream, we are looking for some other people's dream, and then we don't know what we want usually at some point of time. So that is really important to know yourself first. So that is the book basically in help me to understand, okay, like this is something I want to do. It's not like influenced by other people's thoughts and what if their achievements are. So
yeah. Thank you for sharing this. I'll read these books next. Both
yeah.
of these books have also been in my reading list, but I was never, motivated enough to pick them up.
I'm actually excited about the programming books. Yeah, reading those, picking those up.
Yeah.
Especially the first one. I forgot the name. I feel like, yeah, I'm too scared to like change big code bases. And I think that
Yeah,
could really
working
help
effectively
from
with
what you
legacy
said.
code.
Yeah.
Actually, I realized late that I was not afraid of changing the code, but it's more of a culture in the company itself which make me to make changes in the code base itself. So that's also a really big issue. Like if you make a change and break something, are the people in your company are helping you to be a better programmer, and then like helping you to understand what the problem was and you don't make a mistake next time? Or the culture is something like, okay, this is the person who did it, just get him into the office meeting and scold him for 1 hour, and then like he or she will never do that same mistake again. So that was more of my fear of making changes rather than the code itself. So
Have you experienced both scenarios? The one like
yeah, yeah,
being dragged into the office, and
yeah,
other
yeah,
ones
definitely.
where
Yeah, yeah,
people
yeah.
are
So
supportive.
first three years were really brutal. So interestingly, what was happening that one of my team lead in my first company used to work late night, 1 to I think around 1 and 2, and he used to come late in the morning at 12 and 1, and the office start around 10 to 11. So we come into 10 to 11, and we don't know what to do, and he come around 2 to 3 p.m., give us task around 4 to 5 p.m., and then expect us to deliver by 10 to 11 at the night. So so that was I think I was there in for around like 6 to 7 months in that phase. And since it was my first job, I didn't knew that this is a bad thing or this should not be happening. I thought this is a normal corporate culture, how it works. And if I'm not following it, then I won't be having any job.
So you mentioned a few minutes ago something about the importance of building projects,
Yeah.
and I want to get into that now. What type of projects should the listener try to make, and how do you even come up with project ideas?
So I mean, so I would basically look for a goal basically. So if you are looking to build a project for a job, then I would basically suggest to build a simple to-do app or note-taking app. Now, some
But
person.
are there like a lot of to-do apps, and everybody is building it? How do you stand out with the to-do app?
So basically, like you use a technology which is basically a different, and then try to build it. It's not so that's why I set the goal. So if your goal is to get a job, the to do app basically showcase that you are able to build any like a project complex enough in any other tech stack or any languages, or basically it's allow you to show your way of structuring things. So basically a small portfolio of kind of a thing. And this is where how it should start it. Like because the entry barrier should be very low. Like I know to do app how to build and just build it. Because what happens usually is that in order to build a project, now we spend a lot of time thinking on what project we want to build, and then we don't get started at all. So at least like if you start with a to do app or note taking app, it's just like a starting point. So once you have that, you get a momentum. Then okay, I build a to do app. This seems interesting. What can I build next? What can I build next? So my intention of sharing a to do app is just to break that initial barrier. It's like if you want to write a blog, don't think about writing a whole 200, 300 word kind of a blog. Start with a small tweet, like 1 line, 2 line, 3 line, how hard that can be. And once you start see benefiting of it, then you start writing more blogs and all that stuff. And I it seems like that you have a simple to-do app, but there are company builds on to-do apps. So one of the example are like to-do is Microsoft To-Do and three things and all those apps. It's just nothing but a to-do app, fancy to-do app with different UX. So if you can build a to-do app, but maybe you can give your own flavor to it, like from a UX perspective, then that would be a really outstanding thing on your project. It's like this person have ability to solve an existing problem in a very different way. So like this will basically stand out in your projects and on your resume. And then there
And
comes
you even got your job,
yeah.
like first remote job, through a to-do app.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what was happening. So I was working for Android for around 6 years, and I was working on a service-based company, and they were trying to build the same app in Android and iOS. So I thought of let's try to build something with a cross-platform technology. I first started with React Native, and I couldn't bear the mind on how JavaScript works. So I just leave it all alone. Like I came from an object-oriented programming language, and when you come to the JavaScript, I didn't understand at all. So I just leave it, and I thought, let's try something different. And that's where I started with Flutter. And then I search around that what should I build and all those things. And then I heard a podcast on Fragmented Podcast, which is basically run by Don Felker and Kaushik Gopar at that time. And he basically says that I learn any project by building a to-do app. And I thought, okay, this makes sense. So I started as a learning and built a to-do app. And as I said, I built a to-do app, but I was using Todoist at that time, which was having a very good UX at that time. And then I tried to mimic that UX in my to-do app. So that's how I built it. And the company which was looking for a developer was also building a task management app in their own way. So it was kind of a correlate with that. And from todo, if you go to a note-taking app, it seems like a simple thing, right? A note-taking,
Yeah.
a title and description, and that's all it is. But when you go into more detail, when you take notes, you want to format your text, right? And just try to build an editing text in any languages, and you will know the pain, how difficult that is. And that will give you more understanding of how underlying frameworks and all those things works.
Right. And how did this company discover your to-do app? Like it was basically open source on GitHub, but
Yeah,
did it
yeah.
get very popular or so that they were searching for it and when you Google search to-do app built on Flutter,
So
you
I
see
don't know.
this?
I don't know how he did find out, but what I did was I really had a really good README around it. So if you have a really good README, then obviously you will have a lot of keywords and all those things in the README. So when you search for that, it would probably might be coming on top of it. And I have a first mover advantage on Flutter because I started around like 2018 when was it in a initial version. So at that time, people were just exploring, and that basically helped to get my things rank up. So that's how it works. I didn't anticipate anything that this would happen. It's just like more go with the flow kind of a thing. It's just like I'm doing things and it was happening. So yeah.
Nice. And what other projects have you built since then, like since the to-do app?
So To-Do app was my second app, but my first, so it's a funny story. Like my first open source project was not meant to be a project, but it's more of a helping template project to, get it around interviews. So one thing I was noticing around is that when I go to an interview, people ask, or the team asked me to build a CURD application app where you fetch data from the API and show it in a UI. So it was repeating again and again and again. And I thought everyone is asking the same. Why don't I put that in a template form on a GitHub? And then I go to a new company, I just clone the repo and then just run it. So when I did that, like the team lead, the person who was having my assignment was really got surprised that we give you a 3 hours of slot to work on this app and you did it in 15, 20 minutes. How did you do it? And then I said that, okay, I have a repo and I just templatize it so that I can reuse it anywhere. And that's basically how it started. It started to get like 2, 3 star initially on that template itself. It didn't have anything. It was just a template. You just copy it and then start building your app. And that's where I started of thinking about that, how this open source work, what are the stars and why people are forking my repo and like comment an issue. And that's where I started working on a project where I thought like whatever build I will build now would be a modular enough so that I can open source it, and then anyone can use it. And this whole thing was basically behind going the same idea again and again, that like how do people find me rather than me finding people. So it was one part of having that.
Right. And after this to-do app, like what are some of the other things that you've built that you're really proud of that you've open sourced?
Yeah, so one is the photo editor, which is basically an image editing library, and it has around 4K stars and I think around 100,000 folks. And that basically got so popular that I got a chance to talk at DroidCon Berlin about that whole journey, 4 year journey of the photo editor, how I started and what did I learn. And I learned a lot. If anyone can interested, just go to that talk. But like so that was not a part of my job itself. So I didn't learn that from a job. I just learned all those things from a side project. And then I also built a YouTube UX. Basically, if you have used the initial version of YouTube, what was happening that you have a screen and you can swipe it and it goes down the small window video, and then you can drag it around so that the video moves with that. So I built that animation, which is basically called a YouTube UX. So that's also got a lot of attention. And then I built and a what to do app. So what to do app was the third one. Before that, I have built around like 2 or 3, 4 projects on that.
So other than maintaining very good README files for all these projects, is there something else that you do to get them noticed by other
So
people?
I like the README is the only thing I use as a more of a kind of a marketing thing. Basically, where you say how your project is beneficial, how you get started with it, what are the features it offers, and all that thing. And then mostly about it's more of an organic thing that okay, someone picked it up, they liked it, they shared it to the few more people, and then like it keep growing. One of the funny thing happened around that library was since I launched that library, I started to get a lot of issues on that library. People were commenting that this is not working, this feature is not there, this is some issue and all that stuff. And one of my colleague was there and I told him, we are like, I published this and open source and now people are just screaming at me that this is not working. How I supposed to be managing all that stuff? And he said to me that like, don't get discouraged. Like if people are opening a lot of issues and complaining a lot, that means that it's a useful thing, right? People are using it, but they are missing something there. So it's a good indicator that you have a lot of issues and PR coming out of that thing. So maybe one of the way is like be more engaging in terms of in a PR itself, that someone is creating an issue, just don't like abandon it, just reply it, try to help it out. This also create more awareness, like the Readme is also there, but sometimes people search through issues as well. That okay, how do I crop an image? And if someone have created an issue, for example, please add a crop feature to this library, then it might help to get them in their ranking. So just
You
be
accidentally became like realized what being a maintainer feels like. You
yeah,
just
yeah.
accidentally discovered that. So the photo editor idea actually, was it something that you wanted to get highlighted, or was it something that you just built out of your own curiosity and then it got so many
Yeah.
likes?
So I just wanted to make some open source project. So it was my actual day-to-day job, and where there was an app where they want to edit a PDF, where you want to draw on a PDF and then merge it on that stuff. And that's where I thought, what if I make a small modular part of it, which is basically editing an image, and then I try to put it out on GitHub. So that was the basic idea. I didn't know that it would work. It was just like that, similar to how I, created a project to, save time in interviews. I thought of creating the same project here as well, but I didn't know that it would like be used that much. So
It's quite. I think the two main takeaways from this are that yeah, you don't need to like market your project to make it big. Yeah, people will like you can make a good README and people will eventually find out about this. And the second one is that like you don't need to come up with project ideas on your own constantly, like getting it out from like the actual work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, you can get project ideas organically that way.
after that, I built a lot of side project, but I didn't abandon it in midway because like I thought it not going to work it anyway. So my point is that once you get started, you will get a lot of idea. The problem is that to get started itself. So start with a simple to-do app, try to build in a different language itself or something like that. And it will start to create ideas in your head that, okay, I can do this, I can do that. And then you will reach a point where you have to stop ideas that, okay, you can't do all the things in the world. You have to stop and then you need to focus on one idea at a time.
I love it. So I want to talk about your teaching course now. You said that you started it when you were already laid off from your previous job. And can you give me like double click on this and give me why you started this and more details about it?
Yeah. Basically, education a really, really big market. Like people are crazy about it, right? So it's like it's not would be hard to find student like to teach. That was my whole like thought process around it, but that was not the case. But I started that, and also I was seeing the common problems. For example, if I join a company, there would be, since I have a lot of experience, chances are that I would have some junior developer under me. And I was seeing the same problem again and again, like common programming things, right? Like naming things, testing, and like structuring your code, and all those same thing happening again and again and again. And I thought of like, instead of like I teach it them again and again. I thought of why like have a course in a side in between, where if someone is working as a full time and started just now, like a year or 2 years of experience, and they wanted to like understand more advanced level of stuff, like how to work in a corporate environment and how like build project in a corporate world, and like basically advancing your stuff. Basic though, like you can do, everyone can do the basic, but you want to advance your stuff. And that's where my main idea was that try to teach developer who know already a Flutter, like around 1 or 2 years of experience, and then advancing their level up, like how to be a more mid or senior engineer by learning that stuff. So that's how it all started.
Yeah, and tell me how are you doing it? So it's a live cohort. So it's how many weeks is each cohort?
So it's an 8 week classes. So it basically, since everyone is working full time, it runs on weekends. So it's a Saturday, Sunday morning, 10 to 12:30. So it's 2.5 hours. So basically we cover theories more of so I basically live code, and basically how in a classroom usually work, right? That you live code and they can ask question and all that stuff. And there are also other people, other developer as well from a different company, from a different perspective. So different kind of people are different question that why are doing this thing, how we can do it better, or why we are not using this method or not. So that discussion happens. And then on a 2-day classes on a weekend, then we give some assignments that, okay, now you have learned enough, now do it yourself. And then throughout that Monday to Friday thing, they do the assignment. And that's where the real learning comes from, that when they do submit an assignment, I do a code review where how the actual code review happens in the company, so that they can learn that, okay, I built this stuff and this is the feedback I'm getting and how can I get better. And then that cycle repeats for 8 weeks. So it's a 8 weeks course for around like 2 months. So that's how it works.
Nice. That was nice. And how are these, like, your students discovering your course right now?
Yeah. So this basically what helped me is so building my name for a period of time. So if you search about Flutter or like an Android or something like that, somewhere down the line, like I won't say my name would come on top, but somewhere down the line, the name will pop up. And then most of them, that's how they find it that it is there. And more of in a network. And some people are just like, I don't know them, and then they got linked from somewhere else, and that's how they join it. So it's more of an organic reach, something like that.
Yeah, I like that. I love it. So I want to now shift the conversation a little bit and talk about the other main aspect of becoming somebody who has jobs come to them. So one was upskilling yourself, and then the other part, a big part, is also sharing what you have learned on the internet.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how to get started, and I want to talk about like how you got started. So first thing that you got started was Stack Overflow.
Yeah. So in my first job, one of the senior, I was having just a casual conversation, and he mentioned that the CTO of the company liked my profile because I had a lot of points on my Stack Overflow. And I asked him, what is that? So I started answering question on Stack Overflow. And I think Stack Overflow still not toxic that much when it was in around 2015-16. So if you write a question and if you miss a small detail out of it, just people will just scream at you at that time. So you have to be very, very precise about what you are asking and what you are answering. If you don't, then they will just upvote you or delete you. And Stack Overflow has a very strict policy at that time that if you are a new user and if you get a lot of downvotes and basically review comments, then they will block your account itself. So I was very cautious at that time that, okay, I have to put a small step on answering questions and figuring out how can I answer it much more informative way. And that's where it's lead to. So I was wanted to have more visibility, but on a side, I learned that how do you write more effectively that, okay, people can understand. How do you write a question very clearly so that it's easy to find. Same goes with answer. It's not that you will be the best on that, but it will be way better than what you were earlier. So if I compare myself 10 years back, then I can describe a problem a lot better than what I was there in 10 years before. So answering questions on Stack Overflow, it's also increased the visibility. Plus, it helped me to understand how to write better. And this is something I already know. So I don't have to learn something new. So for example, someone asked me, how do you switch branch in a Android Studio? And I just answered that, okay, you click here, go there, click do, and do that. And that was a 3-step process. And that got a lot of upvotes and all those things because that was a common problem people were having. So I didn't think about much that, oh, I need a brilliant idea or I need a brilliant question to answer. That was not the intention. It's just that, okay, this is something I know. I just try to answer it.
You mentioned this thing, and I can relate with it so much that how Stack Overflow is so strict, and there's this legit fear of people on Stack Overflow just downvoting you and deleting you and telling you that you're stupid. That it teaches you to write better, because that is also how, like, when you were saying, I realized that is also one of my first learning experiences in writing online. Like I've only ever posted 3 or 4 questions on Stack Overflow, but just the guidelines that they have for posting questions, they were so useful in just being a better writer that I think it has shaped my writing from the early days.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a blog post around how to debug things, effectively debug things. And one of them was putting your question on Stack Overflow. So if you have some issue and if you put that, more descriptive question and then screenshot and all that stuff, even before you pose the question, you will get the answer itself. Because like you have been through that process of going through so deep that you will figure out the answer itself. You don't need to post it. So next time, if you're having some debugging issue, just try to think, how would I pose this question as a Stack Overflow? And you will find your answer. So bugs are also afraid of Stack Overflow. So if if you tell them that I'm going to put you out there, they will just try to fix themselves. So
Love it. Okay, so tell me, you started with StackOverflow and then you built your own blog, but that that feels like very difficult to a lot of people, building your own website and writing an article, like complete article on that. How did you start with that?
So I started with the Stack Overflow. So I knew the technical aspect of it somewhat, that how do you take a small snippet out of your project to just put it into a blog post. But I mean, for writing a blog, I think there is a one simple answer is basically discipline versus like motivation. So you won't have if you want to write a blog now, you won't have a motivation each day to write something. But if you build a discipline to write like every hour or half an hour or even 30 minutes or 15 minutes for a day, then this will build a momentum to, write things out. Because when I wrote my first blog, what the biggest mistake I did was I was trying to perfect my first line from the first day itself. So let's say if I write my first line, it should be perfect. So I spent so much time on fixing that I couldn't go to the second line. And that took a lot of time. I think it was hardly 300 to 400 word blog post, but it took me around 2 to 3 months because I was just trying to perfect each line after each line. But that's not how the writing works. The basically first you do is you just dump your ideas into a page. It should not be like a perfect language or something like that. Maybe just a keyword and a bullet point. And then you try to fill in those details. You don't fix grammar at all. So if you are using a tool where you have a, red squiggly line coming between, just turn it off and then just keep writing it, writing it, writing it. Then you will have so much data to edit. And once you start editing, that's where the real essence of your writing comes out. And then you write it. So the mistake I did was I was not following, like first I was relying more on motivation that, okay, if I like wake up in the morning and if I feel like writing, I'll write, else I won't write. So it took a lot of time. And second was like doing everything perfect from the day one itself. So that also like block people a lot. Like they're like trying to the first line, then they just edit the line again and then they rewrite again and rewrite again and again. So they can't move that much because in order to, do something, you need to have a feeling of some progress happening. Once you don't have that I'm stuck here, then it's very hard to get out of that. So even if you get stuck, try a different thing. Maybe like if you are writing a blog and you are stuck at something, just try a new topic the next day, write something else for 2 3 days and come back to the first blog. So that will like you are not stuck in a loop. You are just progressing it somewhere or another way. Yeah.
That is solid writing advice. And yeah, I love that you basically are able to discover all of these really fundamental things and truths about, say, answering on Stack Overflow and doing open source or writing by yourself and by doing things and learning what works. That is very, very amazing.
Yeah, even writing nowadays is way much more easier. Now I said that like usually, right, like there are a lot of videos around, ChatGPT will take your job and all that stuff. I would rather say it won't take your job. It just remove your entry barrier, right? Like whatever you were thinking or excuses you were giving earlier that, okay, I won't be writing this blog because I don't know English or I don't know how to form a sentence. I don't know how to format it. Everything is gone now. It's just like more about like how you can put your idea in more, more communicable way, like people can understand it. And editing part, fixing part, anything structuring part will take care of by ChatGPT itself. So now you don't have any more excuse that I can't write. Like it's gone now. So ChatGPT is there. It's just that you have to put those words into that prompt area.
Solid advice. Yeah. And talking about ChatGPT, what do you feel like? It's off the topic over here a little bit, but how do you feel that is going to impact the entry level jobs, and what should freshers do to work with ChatGPT and make sure that they have a good career?
Yeah. So I think one essential skill is now way more become more important. It's basically prompting, right? How do you write a prompt which is way more helpful? So in order to write a better prompt, you need to be a good writer somewhere or another. And in order to be a good writer, you need to understand a lot of vocabulary and the words basically, which can be described. A small word can describe a lot of things. And how do you do that? It's basically reading more stuff. So this is the two thing I would recommend anyone who's starting out is like basically read more stuff and write more stuff. That way you will build your memory muscle on understanding things and also writing things. So don't afraid about like chat GPT. if you make your prompting skill a lot more better, then you will have a lot more output. These are just like a tools, helping tools. It won't replace the job or something like that, but in coming future, you have to know how to use these tools. So it's better to start learning them. So that is my one thing: read more and write more in order to just stand out in terms of chat GPT and all that stuff.
Do you use Copilot or something like that when you're
Yeah.
writing code?
Yeah. So I have a Copilot and it helps me a lot in terms of writing code. One of the things I like about Copilot is it's kind of a TDD on steroids, right? What you do is you write two test cases with some different attributes, and then you write the first one and second one, and then it will automatically write the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth one with different parameters, right?
Yeah.
And when
Right.
you go into that function, based on your test case, it will complete that function itself. So it's basically, so obviously Copilot does not know how to do this. It's more about process and things you do as a TDD person. So if you know how it works, then it will help you and will make you way much more faster on stuff. So yeah, I think and it's helpful, and sometimes it wastes a lot of time as well. So I also wrote some time before that ChatGPT versus Stack Overflow, where like ChatGPT confidently give you a wrong answer, but if you go on a Stack Overflow, the most helpful thing is not the answer itself, but the comment inside that answer. That okay, this is the thing, but it is outdated, it's not working, do this. So
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense also.
What's your advice for people who've been laid off in the current job market?
yeah, so I have done myself. I was like basically avoiding teaching for a lot of longer period of time. So I did that. So if you have something which you have been like not postponing for a lot of period of time, maybe you're writing or speaking or like building a project or something like that, that's a good time that you can do that, because it also improve your skills also, and it also add another project in your portfolio. And like for financial perspective, like try to have some, like if you get a laid off, I'm not sure if you're doing for the first time, that it would be hard, but when I didn't have a job for a year, one thing I realized to like manage finance a lot better, like for have a saving for some amount of period of time, so that if you don't have a job, then at least you have some runway through go through. I mean, like always, it's always unpredictable. Like life is unpredictable. Anything can happen, but it's like way more like better to have some amount of runway or savings rather than not having it all. So yeah, that is something I would recommend.
And what
Okay,
about
next.
like the resume gap? Like people who are laid off and they're worried that the gap in their resume is gonna make it more difficult to get the next job.
I would say that people who look for a gap in a resume have a gap in their thinking. If you have a really good portfolio, like it doesn't matter. If they are asking something like just one of kind of a question, why there is a gap and there is a one line explain and that's all, then that's it fine. But if they are more pushing towards like having why the gap exists, then I think that's kind of a red flag for me, because like they are giving way more importance on what you not do compared to what you did. So I would consider that as a red flag. So.
That's solid advice. Okay, next question. What's your advice for people who are stuck at a good job where they know that they're working on an obsolete tech, but they might be getting good salaries there?
Yeah, so I would advise one is we already talked about is building side projects, like anything which basically allows you to help learn. So if you are looking for a new technology, try to build something in that technology. So at least you will have a portfolio around it. And then one of the things which I mentioned earlier, that we try to meet a lot of people, like go to meetups, like any hackathon happening or anything like event happening. So try to go there and try to meet new people, because if you go to the events, right, like it's might be sponsored by a lot of companies, and they mostly or probably are hiring there itself. So it's way more effective than you can go in a person, ask them like what they're looking for, than sending a resume and then going through a process of that machine basically identifying you through keywords and all that stuff. So yeah, just to make you more visible and find a job, just go to the meetups at nearby meetups or any kind of meetups.
What's a good way to discover about hackathons?
I don't know. I usually use meetup.com earlier. So there you just basically sign up based on like location where you are in right now. And then you just register for the hackathon which are happening nearby. So in order to identify good hackathons and all that stuff, you have to go through the bad one first. So you have to get started. Then you understand, okay, this is something not for me. And then you try to figure out, okay, next time if I would apply, this would be something I would be looking for. So
Okay. What's your advice for people in a tier 2 or tier 3 college who dream big and they want to get into a remote job right away? What should they be doing?
Yeah. So first thing is like for me, which is personally happened that if you are in a small area or small cities like that, just think that the world is a lot bigger. First thing, like you have a lot of opportunity there, and you have a different way to stand out. Try to basically do something which is way more harder, which people are not trying to do or trying to avoid. So try to do that stuff. So basically, I think the writing is one of the hardest thing people don't like to do. So that is something you can do to stand out yourself. And just like in order to find a remote job, it's the same thing, right? Like you build your portfolio and do that stuff. Then it's way more like easier to find out like in the job market stuff that okay, this is the person doing this stuff, and then you get out of that. So
Cool. Okay. Great advice. What have you learned about negotiating salaries?
okay, so when I started out, I usually didn't know that you can negotiate. I thought that if HR or any head of the team asks you that what is your current CTC, then you are bound to say what is your CTC. It's just like I give an example like a parent sending you to the school. You don't question why you are sending you to the school. It's just that you just obey them. So that's how I was with the HRs. Like they were asking question, I should obey them that okay, this is you are asking, this is my CTC. It took me a lot of time, and as I said, like when you go to the meetup, I went to a meetup, and then there was a one person who said that you are not supposed to say your CTC to the HR. So he was just one line in that, and I thought like, why are you saying that? I mean, HR is supposed to help us and find out that what is our CTCs, and then try to increase that CTC and all that stuff. And then he explained whole financial thing around that, how it works. Basically, they try to move, not all of them. I'm not saying all of them are bad, but there are very few of them who are generally try to give you a good compensation, but majority of them are not there. So basically, if they ask for your CTC, they are trying to lowball you. Basically, that let's say if you can get 100, 200 kind of a percent of increment, if you say your CTC, let's say if you are currently, for example, me, if I'm trying to find my next job, and if I say my current CTC is 6.5 thousand per month, then it will give me a 30% hike, which would be like 7 to 8,000, which is like basically not right. So whenever someone asks for a CTC, like basically ask a question that like why you are asking for this CTC and how it would, how would this information will help you? Like try to ask that, and you will know the answer by the HR answer itself, how they answer it. So that is number one thing, and then basically you should like asking, and this is not something I'm saying out of the blue. There are books written on it, and then like a lot of YouTube videos are already out there that basically you should ask for a range from the team, that what is the range you are looking for, so that at least you know that okay, this is the range they are looking for, and then I can ask if I feel comfortable on asking that amount, then I can ask for it. So like most of the developer who are new, basically it is like that CTC is not a written on a stone thing. It is negotiable, so you can ask for more. And if you choose to, you can't say your CTC. I mean, you don't have to say your CTC. Maybe you can ask them for a range that what they are looking for. So yeah, and
So you
one
can
of the
just say that,
yeah
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, one of the best negotiation technique is basically instead of you looking for it, if someone comes to you, then you obviously have a leverage to, ask more. So this is basically the whole branding thing, and building your own brand, that okay, if someone's come to you, definitely they have seen something already in you. So you don't have to sell much, and then basically getting the job at your price is way more higher than you are looking for a job.
Nitish, you were saying something.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was saying that. So if like an HR asks for your CTC, then you can just like you're allowed to just say that no, I'm not comfortable with sharing my CTC.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there is also a lot of back and forth happen. Some might say that we need CTC for our process.
Yeah, I
So
think for most Indian companies, in my experience, this hasn't worked.
yeah,
You
yeah,
are supposed to reveal your previous compensation to them, or
yeah.
else they won't move forward. Yeah.
Even there are companies when you go into that. Let's say if you it's not happened with me, but one of my few friends that happened, that they didn't share their CTC, but they are able to get the high salary. But when they went to the company, the person asked them to get the 3 month salary slip from the previous company, and then they knew that this person has negotiated way higher than what he was having it, and then it became whole the relationship between all that company become very sore, because the company felt that that
Mhm.
person taken advantage of us because he didn't share the CTC as before. So yeah, that happened. I mean,
Right.
that is the advantage of remote job, right? You don't have to go through all of those things. So
Cool. My last question to you, Burhan, is if you were to start a new open source project today, what would it be?
So I think I would end this like, I don't know, but open source project, like if you try to find something, no, it's very hard to do. It's more of a whatever things you are facing your day-to-day job, right? If there's a problem, you don't have to build a whole app. You can start with a script itself, that a small script which you are doing again and again and again, and then basically you can start open sourcing with that, and then you can try to build a project out of it. So the only thing is the same thing. I would say again, that start with a same like to-do app and then try to find new ideas through that. So start with something. Don't stuck with a specific idea that, okay, I'm going to find this and do that.
Yeah, love this. This has been such a fantastic interview, and thank you so much for joining us and sharing these amazing insights with us and the listeners.
Yeah, I'm glad that I got invited for it, and then I'm part of this. So I've been trying to share a lot of these things on and off, but now today I got a chance to share everything at one place. So yeah, thank you.
I love this. I love that we're able to make the one place where you have all of your different pieces of advice that you've been giving over the years. Yeah. All right, awesome. So we will link to your LinkedIn profile, your website, your course in the show notes so that listeners who are listening, if you want to learn more about Burhan's course, follow him, connect with him, you can just go to the show notes and check out the links.